Good morning to you on this solstice morning. It's nice to have you along for the journey of the earthart I'm contributing to the Global Earth Exchange for 2025. It's a winter solstice morning just before the sun is up. My name is Karen Coombs Valiantis, and I'm acknowledging the Darug country we're on, that I live and work on. A Darug man told me recently that one of the main reasons for his acknowledgement of country is to let country know we're here. So we're doing that, communicating to country that our presence is here, and we're acknowledging the presence of country. But also the sacred places, the ancestors, the custodianship that continues, the care of the land and waterways. Dirubin is just behind us, a little in flood, also known as the Hawkesbury Nepean. The totems, the black cockatoos and possums, the grey kangaroo, and the burgeoning interest and resurgence of the Darug language, just acknowledging that, the continuing custodianship and presence of elders emerging, past and present. So this year's contribution to the Global Earth Exchange came about, I believe, through a conversation with a Tawny frogmouth that I had recently. And here's a picture of a Tawny. Note the angle of the body, the extreme kind of 45 degrees. That's going to be important to the place I choose to work soon. You'll see the connection there. So you don't often eyeball a Tawny. They sleep very high in the trees all day, and if you're lucky, you spot their silhouette. But they hunt at night. And I was coming home from work about 10 o'clock, and he was sitting on my gate. And so I was about a metre from him. I wound down my window and we had quite a conversation. Strikingly, I'd just come home from work where I'd just learnt that night that the moths that are a large part of the Tawny's diet, particularly in Australia, the Bogong moth, that has been so plentiful, is in what they call ecological collapse, or first stage of ecological collapse. Bogong moths need to get out of the summer heat, and as we warm, the need to get out of that heat is increasing, but the numbers that are navigating their way to the caves in the snowy mountains and in the cool parts of Australia in summer are very, very, very low, and hence they're spreading out through the country to feed tawnies and other birds, and is what they're calling in decline. So I asked the Tawny, or expressed my knowledge of this to the Tawny, but also a kind of a wish in our silent conversation that ensued. I kind of wished that he would find plenty of moths, that the moths would find their way to the caves, that the stars that they navigate by will not be so outshone by our cities and neon lights and our light pollution. And my conversation became a prayer for his survival, that somehow is connected to my survival and all of our survivals, along with the stars and people appreciating the stars, but also the Bogong moth survival as well. So there was also a acknowledgement of my own complicit contribution to climate change. Not so easy to talk about that one. There's some shame there, and that sort of compounds the grief and the complexity of these emotions, but also a celebration that I had a chat to a Tawny, face to face, very close up. So it became an acknowledgement a prayer, a plea, and a celebration all at once. And that's kind of what's come into my earth art. So I've been making earth art for a long time, but I believe it's when I first saw the work of Andy Goldsworthy. He's a UK land artist, they call it, and here's some of his work with leaves. Some of his stunning work that stops you in your tracks, that took my breath away when I first saw it. My daughter brought it home from school from her HSC art curriculum, and I was just enchanted from the minute I saw it. I was utterly enchanted, and it took me a long time to put into words what that did to me, and I think it was because it was working with my ecological unconscious. In eco-psychology, Theodore Roszak, who sort of was a main instigator of eco-psychology after all the social movements of the 60s, in the wake of that, where ecology and psychology realise that they need to talk to each other and not be siloed and separate, but that there is relationships between them that they need to be more aware of and explore further. So the ecological imagination is, according to Roszak, is a deep repository of memory that knows and remembers, kind of cellular, kind of DNA type of place that knows that we are nature and not separate, not exceptional, not above, but very much a part of everything. Very, very similar, or it calls Thich Nhat Hanh's term into being, the radical realisation that we are indeed connected to absolutely everything. And I didn't know of the ecological imagination until relatively recently, where I could begin to put it into words. But Andy's work, and indeed the work of other earth artists, and there are many doing wonderful, wonderful, beautiful things. And this is working with stone, pebbles. There's a guy in Wales doing some beautiful things. There's I've just found the work of Jean K. Simmons, a UK earth artist that weaves women's hair into the grass and into the land, and literally weaves her models into the land. But there's a South African artist, Hani and Conradi, who works with water and video, and what she does is just extraordinary. I also love the work of Martin Hill and Philippa Jones, working with ice and snow up in mountains that I know really well in South New Zealand and Lake Wanaka. And there are many, many others. And indeed, what I realised is we can all be earth artists. We can work with nature and with our ecological imaginations and fire them up and activate them and create from that place. And the healing, the reconciliation, the invitation to reconcile our ecological selves with the rest of us, and that we've might have shut off or ignored or not even aware of. The invitation for that through earth art is profound for me. And when Durrubin was in flood 3 years ago, the biggest flood everyone's ever known, it came right up to the back door here. I found myself in a very stuck place of grief, compounding grief and anger in the wake of, pandemic and black summer fires before that, and then shocking droughts and fish kill in Australia. And I found myself in a really stuck place of a really frozen place in my eco-grief and ecological sorrow, grief, and also terra fury, my earth rage. Again, Albrecht gives us this term of extreme anger connected to our grief. So I worked with some earth art, particularly with paperbark flowers. So right around this tributary to Durrubin is lots of paperbarks, and they were submerged for weeks and weeks and weeks, completely submerged. But when they emerged from the flood, the flowers were bigger and more prolific, incredibly fragrant. And I worked with paperbark flowers to teach me the resilience and survival and thriving under extreme conditions. And yeah, it was profound for me, very healing, and brought me back out of that frozen place to a place where I could join the living again, really. So another reason I make earth art is it's a beautiful way to cultivate a space for the disenfranchised grief that the researcher and ecological theologian Panu Pinkala talks about, the disenfranchised grief. And this is grief that's not openly acknowledged, socially validated, or publicly mourned. It profoundly interrupts the natural process of grief by feeling belittled or isolated. It compounds grief. And he says it can lead to emotional outlaws. And a lot of my ecological sorrow and grief and terror fury, earth rage, was I was feeling like an emotional outlaw. And I can go to that place with my currently around climate change and my climate overwhelm. But earth art and working with the Global Earth Exchange is a way to express this, a community that acknowledges it, wants to join it, is with you in this across the world, and it works with, it metabolizes that disenfranchised sorrow that there isn't a place for, but it brings a place for it. It creates that space, that mindful space. Also in that mindful space is a way for me to begin to work with power and the powerlessness, power and powerlessness, that those elements of ecological sorrow and rage can work with. I begin to see that power is a perception. And there's a nun working with the Thich Nhat Hanh, with the Plum Village community at the moment, just forgotten her name, but she has also helped me to see. She did a talk at a recent Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet, which is coming out of Plum Village, around power as a perception. So the mindful space that the creative process can supports helps me to put some space around my idea that I've got no power and everyone else who makes decisions around the environment, etc., has got all the power. It frees that up to challenge it slightly and to realise that power is a perception. And who am I perceiving has the power? And who am I not acknowledging in myself as not having power? But power is really the way you show up in the world. And this is a way to show, earth art is a way I can show up in the world and sharing it online and sharing it here. It's a way I can use my power to show up in the world and to express and share things that are happening for me that may benefit other people and may add beauty to a perceived powerless place. And it's challenging my thinking around power, and it's turning it around and on its head in really good ways as I keep working with the space, the mindful space that creativity and making earth art can be. It's also deeply, profoundly connecting, as I said, back to my ecological self and the part that is not separate from nature, the part of me that knows that and remembers that. So there's some of the reasons why I make earth art. What I'd like to do now is invite you. Here comes the sun. Here is the sun on this winter solstice morning. I'd like to invite you across to a cave around the ridge here that I call Frogmouth Cave, and just hold the angle of that bird in mind as I take you across to the cave and show you and share the earth art process that I'm doing for this year's Global Earth Exchange. So the sun is up now. And I want to show you still a bit of mist in the valley. I want to show you a rock I call Frogmouth Rock. And the angle of the rock sticks up like the angle on a tawny frogmouth. Sometimes thought of as an owl, but it's not an owl. It's one of our native birds. And this is the place I've chosen to work.